There you have it. Another day of the year of magical learning.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to kick off book number 3 today, which is the Gulag Archipelago by I'm gonna butcher the guy's name. He's a Russian guy named Alexander Solnitsny. I don't even want to pretend to try to know how to pronounce this one. But yeah,
Can you share his share his name so we can
Yep.
reference it? Okay.
So the user the viewers can read this. This is the Gulag Archipelago. So quick background on the book. This was a really actually unique book. And I think it's really kind of a special book in human history, to be honest with you. Actually, Sarah from Clubany recommended this one, and she was like, this is, one of those just books that people talk about as like a transformational book that you can just learn so much from. And I was like, I got to check it out. So it's actually like an 1,800 page 3-part nonfiction story about the Gulag, which was the Russian forced labor camp system. Right. And this guy, Alexander, he was one of the, I think his name was Sasha in the book or something like that is what they called him. But he was one of the prisoners, and he spent a lot of time in the Gulag. And there was like a literal archipelago, of all these different like forced labor camps that people would, go from all over Russia up in like the northern Siberia area. And anyway, so this story is about his. He journals through all this stuff, and he compiles all of like stories from other prisoners and guards, and all these people, and he collects it over like 10-year, 20-year period of time kind of thing. And then he has the courage to write it in the communist state, which was very, very highly frowned upon at that time. And he just wanted to tell his story of what was really going on within the communist state, and how it had turned from such a beautiful idea into that, which was they were torturing people and killing people of their own people. It was a pretty crazy story. So the reason why I personally was interested in this story, it kind of goes back to my own book, I Can't Imagine, and about the story of Amelia, and about wanting to explore stories from the other side of the human spectrum of pain and suffering. And there's just so many lessons that can be learned, sadly, from really traumatic and painful events. It's hard to read it. Nobody wants to sit through an 1,800 page book about a bunch of atrocities committed to people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I did not enjoy this book at all. Like, I mean, it was not fun to read. And honestly, like, I don't ever want to read it ever again, kind of thing. But I read it for that particular reason, because I really wanted to explore, some of the bad stuff in life, and some of the lessons that are learned from it. And certainly there was a lot of lessons learned from it. So my particular biggest kind of aha that I got out of this book was I wrote The Indescribable Power of an Idea, and as my reflection title. And it was the fact that the communist state, they took something that was supposed to be equality for all, and all this great stuff about helping each other and sharing and all this seemingly good stuff, somehow tragically morphed into imprisoning your own people, constant police state, everybody telling on each other, being constantly interrogated, making people feel like just lesser than human beings, and it was your own people. It was the people that believed in the same idea as you. And it just kind of blows my mind that indescribable power of an idea sometimes, where once you get it in your head, like, this is how it can morph to, and you don't even understand how you got here. If you just zoomed out from the whole Russian experiment and the whole Gulag in general, you would go, what the hell are we doing here? That's what I hear when I read this book and see it. And if I was coming at it from an outsider's perspective, I'm like, what are you guys doing to your own people? These are your people, you guys believe in the same thing. And somehow that idea, was morphed and taken, into this whole nother direction. And, my final summary of the book was, an idea in general, like, they're so beautiful and powerful, But once it leaves your head and you start to build a culture around it, and it leaves your little baby, it's like a little baby, right? Once it leaves your, you birth it, you help other people to understand what you're trying to say about equality and helping each other and sharing, and then 1,000 years later or whatever it may be, like maybe it's the Gulag Archipelago is what Club Any turns into, and that's scary to think about, and that's why like ideas need to be cherished, and constantly the whole 7th generation committee like we have every night, where we talk about our ideas and make sure that we're still aligned to the original vision and the mission and our core values. Like it's just so important to make sure that you're always checking in on those things. Otherwise you can morph into this crazy world like the Gulag Archipelago. So that was my take. Love to get your thoughts.
So what I'm hearing is that in this sense, beauty is only skin deep. There's ugliness just beyond that we just don't see. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I mean it's like when an idea gets birthed, right? It's like literally like a little baby, it's fresh,
Right.
it's nice, it's it's beautiful. This was some Frankenstein of that idea that
Right.
once it's out there, you don't have any control over it,
Yes. So that's, to me, I do agree. But on the same note, if you imagine, hey, I'm going to raise a tiger, a baby cub, and I can be aggressive with it. I can train it to be a killer, or I can train it to be domesticated and to be docile, similar to a concept you explained to me in the past, where they take some Arctic fox and they breed them,
right?
and then taking out and culling out all the aggressive behaviors and the genes of that. So an idea to me also is like that. You can't really control it, but you can nurture it through.
Yes.
You mentioned 7th generation. Are we doing the right thing? Asking the same question again.
Right.
Where are we today, and is this the path we want to take? So to me, an idea is too good, because if we are afraid of an idea, then nothing will happen.
Yeah.
But an
Agreed.
idea that we birth, we need to take responsibility, because that idea could turn into this gulag that you're talking about. So in my like background, but belief, I think that as the founders or the whisper of these ideas, we need to make sure people don't get the wrong intention. We may have good intention, but it can be taken as a different path, and they can turn into something ugly. And I think this is one of an example. So as a lesson in this reflection, I think, is we have to be mindful and continue to nurture any ideas and any things that we create, or anything that we possibly could create a domino effect down the line. Like, if I were to do something to this world, I mean, my kids and my grandkids and their kids is going to pay for my mistakes. So for me, that's a lesson I would take away from this. Unfortunately, I have not read this book. But in what you describe in your reflection, my thought would be, you gotta be conscious of the thing that you raise, and be responsible for what you bring to the world.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think of Club Any a lot when I think of this story, and my reflection from the story of it's our responsibility, not just for us to keep this idea of meaningful work and meaningful relationships and building an ecosystem around this, to the original intention of what we want to try to do, of people being able to do what they want, and where those overlap, we can all build up together and create this great ecosystem.
But I think the intention is still you can still adjust and morph the intentions. You just have to watch it where it doesn't turn into something bad. It could turn into something more beautiful than we originally has thought about. But
I agree. Yeah, no, I guess what I was going with that thought though was, we need to do a really good job for ourselves of remembering to teach other people through conversations like this, through the year of magical learning of what is this really all about, like, because to be fair, like 1,000 years later, think of the Catholic Church or something like that. The people that started these things, I mean, they wrote the Bible, you know, I mean, that's literally what the Bible is a guide in a way for others to carry the flag on, where they understand the origins, the core values, the mission. You know, what's this all about? It's about living a balanced existence and finding meaningful work and meaningful relationships, and always remembering, like, if this somehow turns into clubbing and we're profit money grubby, and you know, and it becomes like the normal corporation that we are trying to be counterculture against, then somewhere we did something wrong, where we didn't teach the right way. And that's kind of what I, you know, really take away from this kind of thing is like, you got to really, it's treat it like a child. I mean, you got to nurture it and teach other people how to teach their next children and their next children and their next children, you know, how to carry on. So
we got to pass on the story, and whatever story we have, that's the story we're going to retell and have a company member retell to, you know, their down generations.
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So I think that, well, actually, if any book, I'm going to start a new tradition here. Any book that you haven't read, I say, I'm going to ask you, you know, is this one you want to read or not?
No.
Okay, I would agree.
I would pass on this one.
Fair enough. So we'll leave the listeners with the question of, what ideas and truths do you hold true that may be doing more harm than good in your own life? You know, maybe go back to the drawing board and the first principles of why you started these things, and maybe they've morphed into something that's not anywhere near what the original intention was. And you know, do a deep analysis on it. So yeah. Something to think about, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, that's it for today.
We'll see you on the next book.
On the next one. All right. See you guys.